Quiet please. Rolling. And action.
Hello. Now, you've no doubt heard the saying, which is the way of describing the three most popular zoom lenses for photography. The Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity of lenses. And in this video, I'm going to show you mine, even though I don't own any zooms. So these three zooms usually consist of an ultra wide, say a 16 to 24 millimeter, a standard zoom, something covering 24 to 70 millimeter, and finally a telephoto zoom, say a 70 to 200 mm. When one zoom range focal length finishes, so the next one usually begins in the next lens, and with these three lenses you have a huge range of focal lengths all the way from say 16mm to 200mm. These three lenses are all you really need to capture a huge range of subjects and views then. Once you go beyond these, say to 400mm, you're specialising and therefore after a particular subject or shooting a particular genre, say wildlife or sport. But for everyday use, these three lenses have you covered. And I have been there. I've had a similar range of zoom lenses in the past, both with my Canon kit in my full frame days, as well as on the Olympus cameras when shooting micro four thirds, two of which I still have, but I never really use. With one camera and these three lenses then, you can become a master of the craft. There's not much else you need to do this thing called photography. But I no longer use these range of focal lengths. I do have three lenses that I use on a day-to-day basis, a Holy Trinity of my own, but they aren't zooms. Instead, my three chosen lenses are primes, and they cover the focal length range of just one of those zooms. So for my photography, I have full frame equivalents of a 24mm, a 35mm, and a 75mm. That's my overall field of view then. That's how I see the world and frame up my pictures with those three lenses. That's the only three focal lengths I need. So the first question you may have then is why not compact those three into just one lens and just carry a standard zoom, which would give me all three of those focal lengths plus every variation in between too. Yes, of course, I do have to carry multiple lenses equating to about the same size overall, but each individual lens is much smaller than one multi-purpose zoom. Plus, when I shoot, I only want to shoot with one focal length at a time. When I shoot 35mm, I'm shooting 35mm. I'm picturing and framing up the world in 35mm, in that field of view, and looking for views to suit that lens. So why would I want to have a 70mm lens on the camera at the same time, like I would with a zoom? It just seems unnecessary. When I choose a lens, I'm committing. It's not just one of several options. So when I fit my 24mm lens on my camera, I bet I'm seeing more 24mm views than anyone shooting with that same focal length with a zoom lens, with all the other options they have as well. Options that are just distracting and getting in the way really. When you shoot 24mm with a zoom, you are no doubt subconsciously still considering all the other options too, as they are there with just a flick of a wrist. With a zoom, you must be hearing tiny voices all the time saying, pick me, no, pick me, let me have a go. Or maybe not. So it took a while to learn this approach, to see the advantage of it, to ditch the popular zoom lens, in a similar way that I also ditched the tripod. But it's been a few years now since I swapped to prime lenses only, and the transformation on my photography has been quite dramatic, to say the least. So a prime lens is smaller than the zoom equivalent. They are lighter too, and of course they are faster. Well, if you want. There are fast primes, those with wide maximum apertures, and slow primes too. And I can purchase and carry a faster one or keep things small by opting for a slightly slower one. You can do this with a zoom too, but you're increasing that aperture across the whole range, which means even more glass, and it's never as fast as a prime lens can offer. Primes are sharper than zooms too. Well, that always used to be the case. I'm sure it still is by a small margin, but of course the quality of zoom lenses is much better these days, so that factor is probably minimal, to be fair. But some primes do still also have very useful depth of field scales on them. Not all of them, and it's a shame that it's often missing, as that was a huge advantage of shooting with primes at one time, allowing for focus-free shooting in a way. You can work out the depth of field at any given aperture simply by looking at the lens, as well as being able to just zone focus and shoot. Now, of course, a zoom lens has many advantages too, and if you are a zoom shooter, I'm sure you're shouting those plus points at me right now. And you're right, zooms have many advantages over primes, except the most important one, the one where it comes to being able to make you a better photographer. Zooms are really just all about convenience. The approach and workflow is very different with a zoom. They're there just to make things easy. But the positive restrictions of primes, the change of mindset using a prime, the way they change your focus, up here, not on here, and the genuine simplicity that primes offer just isn't there with zoom lenses. These are all the things a prime lens does and more. Primes then have the ability to change your approach to photography. If you do shoot zooms, you may just see the disadvantages with having to swap lenses all the time, etc. But it's less about that and more about the overall approach and how they can actually help change the way you shoot. So I can pick a camera and one prime lens and just go out and shoot. You can of course do that with a zoom lens too, pick one focal length, but not quite as easily, and I'm sure you don't either. It's not easy keeping a zoom set at one focal length, but with a prime, it's the way you start seeing and thinking when shooting that's key. You're restricted, as I say, but in a good way. They limit you. A prime lens forces you to become aware of the focal length in use. You don't just choose a focal length to suit the scene, but instead start spotting the scenes that suits the field of view you have. That's the difference. That's the important difference, the crucial difference. Once you realise that, your photography can reach a whole new level. If you shoot with a zoom lens, I bet most of the time you're not even aware of the actual focal length you're shooting with. And once you start restricting yourself to single focal lengths, so you'll soon discover which is your favourite, your preferred focal length, the one that seems to suit your own personal vision. When I go out with a camera, I'm not just shooting defined subjects. If I was a bird photographer, say, I would probably just be using a long lens to fill the frame with that subject. But with my single primes, I'm pulling views from the environment around me. In a city, for example, I'm grabbing the views, the angles, the compositions that are there for all to see. But I'm seeing and framing them easily as my vision is tailored to the lens in hand. I can't fully concentrate on ultra-wide views whilst at the same time trying to spot telephoto views, not with any degree of creativity involved. There is no need for a lens that can offer me 100mm when I'm framing up wider 24mm views. If you're already a prime lens user, I hope you can relate to all this. If you only shoot zooms, it may be something you haven't discovered before. And if you want to see more proof of this idea and see me using prime lenses in action, on location, then of course you can find those videos at my E6 subscription. This on YouTube is the theory. Over there on my E6, I put it into practice. Link in the description below if you're interested, which of course all helps me to be able to offer the theory for free. So are you a prime lens or a zoom lens photographer? Have you tried both, and have you discovered the difference each one can make? And if you think a zoom lens can do all this too, then I would love to hear your own experience. So please leave your comments and thoughts below. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.